Right, now I will now welcome Mr. Graeme Walker. So Graeme, come up, mate, and before you come and sit on the table here, and before you are comfortable being filmed. It's entirely your call, Mr. Walker.
There we go.
All right. Thank you very much. No worries. Okay, so last but not least, I'll now welcome Mr. Graeme Walker, and if you could, for the Hansard Records, tell us who you are and in what capacity you appear today.
My name's Graeme Walker. I'm a full-time truck driver. I appear basically out of self-interest, based on my experiences in the past and currently of the industry. My two pet hates, I guess, that's happened in the industry are wages and superannuation, and how drivers are being cheated out of wages on a day-to-day basis, and over the years we've been cheated out of superannuation as well.
Right, well, Mr. Walker, the most important thing, as I said, there's been many submissions, many people wanting to come to the inquiry, and I encourage everyone. But what does give me some warmth is when truck drivers step up. So you are more than welcome, and the floor is now yours. So you go to opening statement, and I want you to put it all on the Hansard record, and even better, if you've got solutions, throw them at us.
Okay. Firstly, thanks for the opportunity. When I submitted my submission, I didn't expect I'd finish up here today. So I'm really grateful for that. This is my voice, but it's based on my experiences and things that have happened to me and others. Other than being a driver, I've been a driver's representative for a few years. I'm an ex-union member. I've worked in logistics, so I've seen both sides of the industry. So I feel I have a little bit to offer. The subject of my submission was wages and superannuation, highlighting how employers are exploiting, manipulating or downright ignoring the long distance drivers award to reduce their wage costs and take money directly from the pockets of drivers. On the other side, the non-payment of superannuation guarantee has been rife for years, with many drivers, including myself, left well and truly robbed of their funds for retirement. It's been highlighted in recent times that across many industries, the catch cry is that our industrial award system is too complex and is easy for employers to make mistakes. From experience, I believe that employers are only interested in finding the bare minimum from the awards, and they hope they can get away without paying, and are pleading ignorant when exposed to their fraud. One of the great achievements of the transport industry has been to divide and conquer drivers to the point where exploitation of wages and conditions are common practice. And when you look at the industry itself, there's all the industry groups, there's the union, then there's the rest. And the large portion is the rest. So we're basically on our own to fight our own battles. I've been where I've worked as a driver's representative. We've had issues where we've tried to involve the union because of lack of numbers of drivers in the yard, the members of the union doesn't want a bar of it. You go to Fair Work, I've wrestled with them a few times, and it's a similar thing. They want to go to mediation to start with. Well, we've already done mediation and it's failed. But that's their first step, and their system is so complicated and convoluted, you throw your arms in the air and walk away. So, just firstly, I just want to highlight a couple of examples of companies I've worked for in the past that have blatantly ripped drivers off. In 2009, I commenced employment with a major horse transport company in New South Wales, well, based in Australia. Two things they didn't do. One is they never paid the casuals loading. The casuals were paid the same hourly rate as the permanent drivers. And the second thing is they never paid us for rostered days off, which is part of the long distance drivers award. We fought that one numerous times. You may see that on some paperwork I sent through on that, there was some pay slips from an ex-colleague of mine in 2021. they are still not paying rostered days off to their permanent drivers. And speaking to some of their casuals, they're still not paying loading on their casuals.
So sorry, Graeme, just to get it right. So
You're
they're still working a 40-hour week, but not getting the.
Well, they're paying a 48-hour week, but if you look at the
48. Okay.
but if you look at the award, the award's only a 38-hour week.
That it is.
So they're still working on a 40-hour week.
Yep. Thanks.
The other example I wanted to highlight is there was some text messages that came through from an employer in regards to all the drivers in that working for that business have workplace agreements, which they were never given the opportunity to negotiate. If you want a job there, you read if you can be bothered, you read the agreement, sign it, and it is what it is. So those text messages highlight how the company wants to change the rules on the run. So they decided that if you weren't laid into your maximum weight all the time, that they were going to penalise you in your wages, which they actually have done to some drivers. Some drivers have fought back and got their wages back, but that's management on the run, changes to agreements on the run, no negotiation. The other thing that's in that agreement is if you got held away from before midnight Friday night till after midnight Sunday night, they used to pay you a $200 allowance. Again, management on the run, they got up one morning and said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. And
Well, they want to pay you more.
No, they don't want to pay you anything.
I'm being sarcastic. Yeah.
So what's happened there is that it's given the logistics office carte blanche to send guys anywhere they want over the weekend, rather than getting them home, and it's all at your own cost. There's no recompense for accommodation or additional meals, things you wouldn't normally have a weekend if you were home. I just want to move on to my greatest bugbear, is clause 16.4a of the Long Distance Drives Award.
I'd like you to read that out because I have no idea what that is.
So I'd have to find it.
And so everyone can share that with you. I have to confess, Graeme, you've caught me here. I haven't read an award for many, many years.
It's not what I would call bedtime read.
No, I agree with you.
I can find the damn thing.
Well, look, if you haven't got it there, just roughly if you can tell us
Right.
what. I don't need word for word.
Clause 16.4a is the payment of wages on a cents per kilometre rate.
Oh, right. Okay. Yep.
So
I think you
that's
might have a
what-
few supporters around on this one, but keep going.
So if you read the clause, there's a huge anomaly in the clause, as it does not prescribe how the kilometres are recorded or calculated. Once upon a time, it was always off the speedometer. And after 2000, that even became more accurate because the legislation for the fatigue-related vehicles said that you must at all times have a working speedometer, and it has to be accurate. So that worked in our favour for a while, but then along came Google Maps.
Yep.
They are now calculating kilometres off Google Maps. Now, if you understand how Google Maps works, it doesn't record actual kilometres, it estimates kilometres.
And it's the shortest
And it's always
route.
the shortest distance.
Yeah.
So for somebody like myself, driving B doubles and road trains,
Yeah.
Google Maps doesn't have a part to put in the restrictions we have for road trains, B doubles, routes,
Pretty cunning, isn't it?
and high mass limits. Because of all those three give us restrictions. The
Yep.
roads we can use, where we can go, how we can get there.
Yep.
So I again, I forwarded this to you. I did a spreadsheet on my wages from the 7th to the 2nd, 16 to the 21st to the 1st, 17.
Yeah, I've got it right here.
Yep. Now that's done on a fortnightly basis. If you see the actual Ks at the top heading,
Yes,
they're the actual kilometres that were recorded both off the speedometer
I did read this about 6 months ago, right?
and into and in my logbook.
Yep.
If you look at the next column, which is paid kilometres, that's the kilometres we were paid off Google Maps.
Mm.
Now you'll see that over a 12-month period, there's a variation of over 11,000 kilometres.
Yep.
So if you want to, if you look at that on a fortnightly basis, that's about 429 kilometres on average that we're chucking in for nothing.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let's talk a bit more about that, because those listening out there think 429. Oh, you're doing about 100k an hour, 4 hours. Oh, yeah, that's pretty bad. Let's really dig down. And
So if I just go the next step, based on the current B double rate at the moment, which is roughly 47 cents a kilometre, that's $201 a fortnight that I'm not getting paid. If you want to extrapolate that out even further,
say that again. Sorry,
$201
Yep.
per fortnight
Yep.
that you're not getting paid.
Yep.
If you want to extrapolate that out even further, the wages, if you had a company and you owned 30 trucks,
Gets attractive, doesn't it?
and the average across the fleet is this 400 kilometres a fortnight, based on my figures, the wages saving per fortnight for 30 trucks would be $6,000, $6,000. Annually, that's $156,000.
But also, Graeme, that's not factoring in leave. It's not factoring in superannuation payments.
No, it's not, and that's, as I was about to elaborate, that's just a straight cash saving.
Yeah.
On top of that, you've got savings in payroll tax, PAYG tax, works compensation, annual leave,
Yep.
all the add-ons.
So, Graeme, the argument was actual case versus Google Maps.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Yep.
So, what disappoints me with this is that, for all intents and purposes, at all levels of government, and I'll throw the union under the bus with this as well, they're allowing this to happen. We have an award that doesn't prescribe how our kilometres are calculated. Therefore, technically, the companies are doing absolutely nothing wrong.
Can I just throw in as we're going through, and I will say one thing, that and this is absolutely unarguable, it is the truth, the Howard years and the subsequent years following have been very successful in diminishing the opportunity for the union to come in and police the award structure, because and they'll defend themselves, Graeme.
Yep.
But I do have to say this. That they can't go into a work site unless they identify who the union members are. The Howard government did a magnificent job at smashing the rights of collective bargaining and award enforcement. But anyway, that's now up to the union to come forth and they can run that argument. But I do have to say it because it breaks my heart to think how the rules I operated under in my previous life, when I could walk into a yard and go, boys, you got the shits, go sit in the lunchroom, we'll sort it out. And you know what, Graeme? We normally sorted it out.
Yeah.
So sorry, keep going,
Yep.
mate.
So, what I'd like to see, and government, Fair Work and the unions have the power to do it, is actually to change that particular clause in the award, so companies actually have to pay us for what we're doing, not what they think we're doing. Because over a year, that's a lot of money for a driver to lose.
Oh, yeah.
11,000 k's difference is a lot of money, and It's, if, for example, if I was working on an hourly rate, then the clock is what you measure it by. We pump thousands of litres of diesel into our tanks every week, and we pay for that on a metered device. But I can get in a truck and drive from Melbourne to Brisbane, and someone can estimate how far it is and pay me on that. I understand that there's clause 16.4b which will give you a schedule of distances between capital cities around Australia, and they're paid on that.
GPO to GPO,
Yeah. And that's fine, I get that, that's fair. But in the line of business that I'm working in, which is bulk commodities, we are loading and unloading on farm, we're delivering to port, we're delivering to capital cities. And what they've done is they've moved that capital city theory from Newcastle to Dubbo or Newcastle to Narromine. And they're working on the post office theory. I've yet to tip anything at a post office or load anything at a post office.
Couldn't have put it better. Graeme, can I just ask as we're going through, mate, now, as someone who's been in the industry as long as you have and on the big gear, is this just a one-off employer doing their own thing, or is this rife in certain parts of Australia? Or is it rife in certain sectors of the industry, or is it everywhere?
I believe it's fairly common.
To the best of your knowledge?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, it's a fairly common practice because it's not illegal. Google Maps appeared on the internet in 2005. Yesterday, 2005 is actually the date, the 8th of February 2005.
Oh, yeah.
And it's gradually crept in over the years. And now it's common practice that freight rates are now, particularly in bulk commodities, are calculated off Google Maps.
So let's go another step further down this track, Graeme, with
No, you're right.
what we have in front of us here, where you can't actually, I'm reading before I'm speaking, you can't argue when you have actual kilometres which is taken off the speeder as opposed to what you got paid. But let's talk a little bit more, and I'd mentioned this a number of times through this inquiry, and I've mentioned it in the Senate. What about when you're fueling? What about when you're changing tyres? What about when you're hooking up? What about when you're checking your load? What about when you're pulled up for your fatigue brakes? What about when you're washing the truck? So there's no pay there, is there? Or is there?
Currently, I get paid to wash my truck.
So you get an hourly rate?
We're given a 2-hour allowance every week to wash our trucks.
Okay, well, you're doing better than a lot of others I've spoken to.
We get paid to load and unload.
On an hourly rate?
It's on a fixed rate.
So what does that mean, Graeme? Does it mean over and above the award, or is it parity?
No, it's calculated. There's a calculation in the award based on the grade of the driver. I think it works at the grade of the driver's hourly rate times 1.5 or something. I think that's the actual calculation.
1.5 normally means time and a half.
Yeah, whatever. It's $20 by 1 time and a half type thing. So we get a fixed amount to load and unload. Now, if you're lucky, you might be in and out in an hour.
Yep.
Then you've had a win. But we operate in the hurry up and wait industry.
So, Graeme, this is one of my pet hates too. So this is where I go. This is the snake oil merchants. Take the good with the bad. Why do I have to take the good with the bad? It's your bucket of nuts and bolts. You're the one putting the cost out to the clients. Why should the driver have to take the good with the bad?
Yeah, I totally agree.
I'd like to tell Shell to take the good with the bad when I was a truck driver. I'd love the guy on the Kenworth or when I had the Scania, go on the Scania and say, you take the good with the bad. I've had a bad week, so I'm not paying you the whole lot. How far would I have got then?
That's right.
This is an owner-driver perspective. Sorry, keep going.
So, as I previously mentioned, I think Google Maps should be thrown out the window and any other device that estimates kilometres as a means of payment to drivers, which is Apple Maps, and the NHVR portal has a trip calculator on it.
So let me just put this to you so I've got this in perspective. And I have said it a number of times that I know of companies that pay kilometre rates, and I've been part of negotiations in my previous role, but they've been backed up by hourly when they're loading and unloading the guys and enterprise grid rates or whatever it might be. So would I be wrong to assume that if you got paid the actual rates the actual kilometres, I should say.
Yes.
Would that be above award, or would it be parity with award? Would it be miles in front? What would
No,
it be?
it is. It's all based on if we're paid the actual rate, we're actually being. Sorry, let me rephrase this. If I was paid for the actual rates,
Actual kilometres.
kilometres that I drove, I'm not being paid. I'm only being paid the award kilometre rate itself, which is 47 cents.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
So that's the B double rate currently,
Yeah.
46.91 cents. So it's 47 cents to round it up.
Yeah.
So I am only being paid. I would only be being paid what I deserve to be paid by being paid the actual kilometres.
Gotcha. Yeah. So this is wage theft.
Yeah.
Straight up wage
It's
theft.
outright, but it's legalised by the award, because the award does not say that there's a prescribed method of calculation of kilometres.
Yes, because I remember having these arguments back I wasn't actually involved, but I remember the arguments, I should say, where the main game in town was us, I talked with the TW hat on, arguing with the employer representatives, what is the average speed? This is how all this nonsense started, where certain sectors of the industry, it's 90 kilometres an hour, where we were saying you're lucky to get 70. And yeah, anyway, so coming back to your sums and all this, and I have no fear in saying this, we've worked out this is wage theft. There's no argument about that. But where is the protections? Is what I think where you're leading to. Where are the protections for the truck drivers? Where do they go to say, hey, I'm suffering wage theft?
I can't find one. I first of all presented this. I first of all presented this to my employer, and they didn't argue with me.
Mm-hmm.
But they also pointed out they weren't doing anything illegal
Mm.
because the award allows it.
I'm letting my head spin around on this one.
So, as I've said previously, we've got all
Thank you.
from government down, and all those who are charged with ensuring that the awards are properly used, they're all asleep at the wheel with this.
Yes. What I can tell you, Graeme, and tell all truck drivers, the sad part is that the Fair Work Ombudsman, this is the Fair Work Ombudsman's role. The good old days is the union could walk into a yard, demand to see the boss's books, take a photocopy with them, and then the organiser could photocopy all their wage slips, take it away, then make application to the commission, whether it be a state industrial commission or the Australian Industrial Commission, Relations Commission, and seek underpayment and go get costs all back. That's now been removed. Now that's not possible. Now it falls to the Fair Work Ombudsman, and the Fair Work Ombudsman's role is to go out there and administer this and police it. I believe the Fair Work Ombudsman is grossly under-resourced, underpaid, but what I also do know, and I can verify this, I've written to the Fair Work Ombudsman when I've asked them, please forward me all the underpayment and sham contracting prosecutions that they have undertaken since their formation. And they did. They've been very helpful, sending it through to me. But you as an employer or me as a truck driver, if I want to go to the Fair Work Ombudsman, the first thing they do is say, well, let's try and fix it up. Can we blow kisses at each other and get a payment and hope that God, the boss goes, oh, all right, I'll give them some go-away money. That don't work, mate.
No.
The next option is take it to one, and I can't think if it's the district court or whatever court it is. When it was explained to me, I thought, how is a truck driver going to go down that path? Who the hell's going to pay for that? We've seen prosecutions been going for 2 years, still no resolution.
We can't go down there, but we're floating in the ocean all by ourselves.
They're getting away with murder, mate.
We've got nowhere to go. As I say, I've tried to deal with Fair Work in the past on different things, and it's so convoluted and so difficult. And the first thing they want to do is mediation. As I say, I took that to a meeting with the general manager and said, this is what the difference is, what's going on. And he said, yeah, I get that, but I'm not doing anything illegal.
So, all right, so Graeme, I go to this too, and please correct me if I'm wrong. My experiences in Western Australia show that there was usually a city rate, and then there was a town rate or a country rate. In Western Australia, it was it was common practice that transport companies in rural Australia were probably not paying near what transport companies were in the city. Not because they were crooks or they were thieves, it's because the pressure was put upon them from their clients in that part of the world that if you want to card our freight, that's what we're going to pay you. And bearing in mind, half of them are neighbours and their kids play footy together and all that sort of stuff. It makes it terribly hard. So this job you were doing was predominantly rural or rural. Is that the case in that part of New South Wales?
No, I can honestly say that where I've worked in rural New South Wales and the awards, the basis of an agreement, that we've always been paid our entitlements. That's not the issue.
Right.
My issue is exactly this: is the calculation of kilometres.
Yeah.
If I drive 150 kilometres for the day, then I should be paid for 150 kilometres, not what Google Maps says is 130 kilometres.
Yes, because there's also this argument, and I get that. I have no argument with that. But we have had quite a few submissions and quite a few presenters who, for that reason, are totally opposed to a kilometre rate. And saying that it should all be hourly, then you remove all the arguments. What's your thought around that?
I don't disagree, and I think if excuse me, I think if the industry wanted to solve some of the fatigue-related issues, then kilometre rates should be scrapped. And elaborating on that is that we can spend a great deal of time waiting to get loaded. So we've made our $36 to load, and we've been sitting there for 3 or 4 hours time we get loaded. We've made our $36 to load, which we're now on $9 an hour for that period.
Yeah.
So to make $1, you've got to drive the maximum number of hours, the maximum number of kilometres, in the shortest possible time to get to the other end.
And of course, I wouldn't dare put you in this league unless you offered up evidence otherwise. What has come out loud and clear in this inquiry, particularly in the first inquiry we had in Albury last year, where truck drivers, hand on heart, actually admitted on the Hansard and straight out that they break the law each time when they're not getting paid by not marking it in the work diary or in their logbook as actual working hours as they're moving the truck along through the DC or they're moving the truck around the premises to load here and load there. Would that be a pretty similar case?
That's a pretty similar case.
Yeah. So when all said and done, and now listening for, because there are people listening, not everyone's a truck driver. And of course, the problem that we have here too, Graeme, is that there are numerous employers in the transport industry who are very decent people, really decent human beings who just want to do the best for them, for their families and for their employees. So while we are talking about wage theft and all that sort of stuff, we do have to look at, I believe, some form of protection for transport companies as well, to make sure that the main game, the main player, the economic employer, being the top of the supply chain, and we know that that's all sorts of other companies, must be held to some account. Yeah, they have to be.
One of the biggest issues, I think, is in the bulk transport industry is that the word demurrage is very rarely used. If people in the supply chain were made pay demurrage for trucks sitting around waiting to load and unload, and a lot of these bulk places, grain handling places and that, they're antiquated. They were built when they were bringing them in J-series Bedfords.
Yeah.
Little tiny, 8-ton trucks.
Yeah.
We're rolling in the gate with a 40-ton truck and it's taking 2 hours to get it off because that's their equipment is so out of date. But they don't pay demurrage for it.
I'm going to look, this is going to win me no friends in certain sectors of Australia's community, but one thing I do is I go to bed at night and sleep while what I've said most of the times during the day. This is the Rural Regional Affairs in Agriculture and Transport, Rural Regional Affairs and Transport Committee, which I've been a part of it in one way, shape or form, chairing either legislation references or when I was first brand new into the Senate for the first 2.5 years. A lot of our work's agriculture. And you don't have to comment, but I will say this on behalf of Australia's road transport industry. The nation would be in uproar, and quite rightfully so, if our farmers were treated the way that our transport company is treated. And what I mean by that is absolute massive wage theft, all the other stuff that goes with it, race to the bottom. You can imagine all the Yakuba wearing R.M. William boots, members of the National Party and the Liberal Party in Canberra doing somersaults backwards to protect our agricultural industry, so they should. But why are we bottom feeders in the road transport industry? Why can't we have the same respect? Because we want them, and other than the miners and the manufacturers and the storekeepers, all to be safe and sustainable and viable. We want them to be able to have access for their kids for good education and a roof over their head. And I will stand on any platform to defend any other industry. Why doesn't the transport industry have that same respect?
That's probably $1 million question, and I can't answer that either.
No.
But we all need each other, and that's the silly part about it.
Yeah.
Farmers have got to be able to move the produce, whether it's to railhead, to port, to feed mills.
Yep.
You know, even if you go to the other industries, supermarkets, whatever, we all need each other. If they'd have shut transport down during COVID, you would have, riots and shopping in supermarkets would have been a normal activity.
Yeah, so look, Graeme, it's probably unfair of me to put that to you, but it does give me I won't say it puts a bit of pressure on me most times when I just cannot believe the disrespect that is shown to the road transport industry and the participants in it. We're no different than anyone else, mate. We're part of the community, but the only difference is I do get rather annoyed when I hear certain components of the transport industry say everything's delivered on the back of a truck. And as we all know, not once, not twice, maybe 8 times before you get to eat it or wear it.
That's right.
And I do wish every other sector of our community and our economy success. But we're there at the beginning and we're there at the end.
That's correct.
Aren't we? Graeme, is there anything else that you would like to put to the committee before?
I just want to touch on my other pet subject, which is superannuation.
Please, go for it.
Whilst superannuation is a great thing for the average working person, one of the flaws in the superannuation from the day it was incepted was whoever wrote the legislation must have thought that the honesty system was the best system. I worked for a transport company that is now defunct for 9 years, a company called Livestock Transport Group. I left there 2 years before they went into receivership. I owed $8,000.
$8,000 in superannuation?
In superannuation.
So in other words, you probably got none for the whole time you were there.
I got some, but not all was owed. On a couple of occasions, I went to the ATO to try and claim it back. The ATO system is extremely clumsy. You make a call to the ATO, you lodge a complaint, they send you back a letter saying it's being investigated. Then you get another letter from saying that they've spoken to the employer and they will pay your unpaid super on 10th of February. The 11th of February comes around, you check your superannuation account, nothing. A week later, nothing.
Yeah.
So you go back to the ATO and you go around the whole circle again. Now, in that company, we all lost money when they went to receivership. I have a close friend and colleague.
Lost money in wages as well as superannuation?
they with the wages, the employees were paid out through that.
The John Howard clause.
Yeah, right. Yeah. They got paid out that way, but we all lost our superannuation. Now, I've got a folder here in my bag that I could pull out and show you of one guy who gave that company 24 years service, and the day they closed down, he was owed just on $100,000 in unpaid super.
My God.
And that folder is that deep, full of letters from Transport Workers Union, the company, solicitors, and at the end, the last letter in the system, and the administrators, and the last letter in the system says, "Sorry, sir, you will not get anything."
You know, as criminals that is, let's not forget this too. And I remember being paid superannuation as a young truck driver at Ansett, and I think it was about $2.80 or something at the time, thinking, why do I need that? But more importantly, now I'm 60, thank God that did start there. But let's not forget, super was not a gift that was given to us. We sacrificed wage rises.
Absolutely.
So,
and
yeah.
And one of the other issues I've got with the super system is that how drivers on kilometre rate are paid superannuation. There's a formula, but for someone who's doing 200,000 Ks a year, at 47 cents, that's about $94,000 just on the kilometre rate itself without the add-ons.
Your earnings, yeah.
Yep, that's my earnings. So basically, to cut a long story short, the calculation of the super that I get paid is on about 50% of that.
Yes, because you're not getting 9.5% of the 94, you get 98% of the base for 38 hours.
But we're not working 38 hours.
I understand. I fully understand.
We don't work ordinary time, we don't get paid overtime. We work days, we work nights, no penalty rates, no nothing.
That's right.
So whatever kilometres I do in a week, fortnight, month, year is my earnings.
So hence, Graeme, it comes back to this argument. Rather than enforce the 40 cents a kilometre hour, 40 cents per kilometre award rate, it really does strengthen the argument. Chuck the whole lot out and just go on an hourly and make sure that the clients pay properly.
Absolutely.
Graeme, is there anything else you wish to
No,
add?
that's all. That's where I'd like to conclude. Thanks very much.
Look, I want to thank you for sending this through to me when you did, and we have spoken, or we've texted each other a couple of times, and I do appreciate you coming in here. Thank you very much for doing that, and I wish you well on your travels, and you know how to get hold of me should you want to follow anything up. So on that, then, to all our listeners, before I do depart, I've got an email here that says, I'm just going to share this with you. Look, for what it's worth. So there's a transport boss, Mr. Rod Staples. I don't know, I've never heard of Mr. Staples. So he's the Secretary of Transport for New South Wales. He's departing his role on February the 19th. And they're going to give him an $837,000 payout to wish him well. Just thought I'd share that with you. When asked why he's leaving, the Transport Minister was unable to comment on the details. There you go. On that, I was on a high before I did that, but there you go. Thank you very much to everyone,
Thank you.
to the diligent, hard-working Secretariat. I know you put up with a lot there, Jerry, but good on you, mate, to be lost without you. Hansard Broadcasting, magnificent. Thanks, guys. That now concludes today's hearing, and the committee now stands adjourned.